starting my review in 3, 2, 1. 28 years later, Danny Boyle and Alex Garland deliver a great third act with a substandard zombie film preceding it. My experience with Danny Boyle's zombie franchise is a bit of a dodgy one. I like the first film enough, but I do feel it is pretty overrated as the second half featuring the military lets it down. Good, but overrated. I'd give it like a solid 7 out of 10. I eventually watched the second one, which is considered lesser by many, yet I found it to be the more engaging out of the two, now most engaging out of the three, having one of the best openings to any zombie film ever. And a story that follows through, I was pleasantly surprised. While many expected months to succeed weeks, it just never happened. When enough time had passed, Boyle and Garland returned to the franchise and decided to skip months altogether and made it years. I was indifferent until that first trailer. Enthralling and arguably the best trailer for any movie since the finest example in 1979, Alien. So with that, I was excited. While a great film, I am still left with a hole of disappointment I will get into in this review. First, let's start with the acting. I felt that most of the actors in this movie were good. I think Aaron Taylor Johnson has some interesting bits with his performance, mainly that he is supposed to be representative of how far humans have gone in this brave new world, and by world I mean country, but there isn't really much to him, and I feel as though he is kind of wasted here. He tries, but I feel like he exists as sort of this shade of gray theme device, that the character exists more as an allegory than an actual person you care about. Jodie Comer does a bit more as the degenerative mother to Spike and wife of Jamie. In the second half, she does a bit more and does some interesting things with her character, and she plays someone who isn't all there very well. I just wish we got a bit more of her. Alfie Williams as Spike does a good job with what he's given. Again, I feel like the writing lets him down despite the fact he is doing very well and is acting well against very established actors. I hope he gets more roles after these films. Then finally, we have Ralph Fiennes. Despite not appearing in the movie for very long, he gives an absolutely brilliant and excellent performance. He most definitely steals the movie, and it feels like Alex Garland saved all of his good writing for him. Or maybe Fiennes is just that good. But it is unsurprising he gives such an amazing performance here. Maybe one day he'll win one of those golden statuettes, but I ain't holding my breath. Although, I did also want to mention the dialogue was very hard to hear half the time because British. Y'all sound like you're gargling marbles half the time. Moving on to the technical aspects, which were fantastic. Tons and tons of memorable shots and dynamic fluidity with the camera. I loved how you had like a kill cam for a lot of the zombie kills in this movie. It felt almost like a video game in that respect. It was shot primarily on iPhones and less official film equipment, which certainly gives the film a unique look and reminder of where this franchise came from. I thought some of the editing was a bit choppy in the beginning and had some weird choices throughout, but it was nothing noteworthy in terms of it being terrible. I'm just being a bit nitpicky. The stock footage was definitely a choice. I thought the gore and kills were fantastic, definitely some of the best parts of the movie in the first two acts. I also didn't mind some of the zombie lore sprinkled throughout. I just wish we got more of that. Well paced for the most part, started feeling the runtime in the middle, but I was never bored or anything throughout. The music was good, albeit strange. I was a little sad we didn't hear In the House in a Heartbeat, the main theme of the franchise. I mean, I think there was something at the end that sounded kind of similar, but I don't think it was the same track. At most, it was probably just an homage. The plot was nearly non-existent. It was essentially just showcasing the world that was set up 23 years prior in Danny Boyle's initial film. It was just going through the motions, what was going on in Britain now. How this little island community works, presenting dystopian ideas, how far gone these people are in this world, but unfortunately, none of it is terribly interesting. Just kinda showing us the world, but not really doing anything to bring us into said world. The thing that kept me going throughout most of the movie was the dynamic cinematography and the gore and the kills. I just wasn't really feeling what was happening. It was fine, but it wasn't holding my interest a ton. To me, it felt like things happening the movie, with thinly veiled one-dimensional allegory that has been done a million times before. Wait. Are you telling me that The humans are worse than the zombies? Wow! We've only seen that a trillion times since this damn subgenre was started back in 1968. Thanks for that, Alex. Speaking of the plot, though, I noticed fairly early on, and especially at the end of the movie, this really isn't, or at least to me didn't feel like it, a sequel to 28 Weeks Later, because none of the plot threads from that movie are ever talked about properly. The idea that maybe humanity can be saved from the virus with possibly immune humans, never addressed. The infected invading Paris? Oh, apparently the white flag French stopped it off screen. Maybe. So instead of these really intriguing plot points getting addressed, we got... let me check my notes here. We got glaringly obvious and one-dimensional Brexit commentary. Thanks, Alex and Danny. So while the first two acts were nothing special, once the character of Eric entered the picture, it definitely got better. He brought moments of levity and laughs to an overall depressing and melancholic film. A nice breath of fresh air. I liked how you had him being like, oh yeah, my buddy is like an Amazon driver. Here's the internet, here's smartphone, here's my girlfriend, and this kid who just knows like dystopian shit his entire life is like, bro, what the fuck are you talking about? I thought that was a good moment, and it was like, after all this like depressing stuff, it like brought in like, okay, we can like kind of laugh a little bit before moving on. But speaking of moving on, shortly after, Ralph Fiennes enters the picture, and it's almost a completely different fucking movie. Like, where the fuck was this throughout the entire movie? Quality, layers, engaging storytelling, nuance. Hello, my old friends. Nice to see you again. What Ralph Fiennes and his story brought to this movie single-handedly saved the fucking thing from being a decently engaging but run-of-the-mill zombie flick with tone-deaf commentary and allegory. It had the same style we saw throughout the film, but it gave us a wonderful character-driven piece. Fiennes, despite being in the film for a few fleeting moments, makes this worth watching, makes this worth the price of admission alone, makes this third act the best zombie-related anything I've seen since Train to Busan, which I still argue to this day is the greatest zombie film ever made, next to George A. Romero's zombie opus, Day of the Dead. Yes, I said Day of the Dead, not Dawn of the Dead. Fight me. As I said before, maybe Garland saved all of his greatness towards this final act. Maybe Ralph Fiennes is just that good, that just including him and him alone reminds us of what greatness on film truly means. In this last act, we see these characters that were relatively flat and uninteresting go through these brilliantly constructed arcs of grief and loss, showcasing that even in apocalypse, we still deal with human loss rather than infected ones, that life can be taken away not by an infected virus, but by happenstance, by just being unlucky. What Williams, Comer, and Fiennes share in these few scenes meant more to me than the rest of the running time. It possibly makes it even more aggravating that this greatness could not be the entire film. I stand by that this should have been Fiennes' film. The level of nuance and grayness that he brought to such a one-note film left me feeling things that God knows I didn't feel throughout. He should have been the main character, and while I wouldn't say his talents were wasted, it left me wanting more, and not in a good way. Considering the next film will not be directed by Boyle, much like my favorite 28 film, it makes me more excited, and especially with the title that highlights what we saw here, the Bone Temple. So one can only hope that Fiennes has more of a part in the next film, which I believe Danny and Alex have said many times in interviews in the past. I do wish it could have ended, this is kind of a major spoiler, so if you really don't want anything spoiled, this is a big one. So I do wish it could have ended with Alfie placing the skull on top of the monument, because I feel that would have been a better ending than Boyle and Garland taking the piss out of Jimmy Savile for some reason. Although, definitely the most British thing I have ever seen in a movie. Overall, it's a great film, but mainly for what was brought to us in that final act. The rest of it was good, purely as a run-of-the-mill zombie flick. Nothing more. To me, you should have just made this a prelude to the next film as a short film just featuring Ralph Fiennes. It would have made the film a whole lot better. Since the first two acts to me are like a 6 and the last act is like a 10, A perfect middle ground would be an 8 out of 10. So that is my rating. I would give this about an 8 out of 10, and I still recommend it. I still say go to a theater to see it. It's not it's not terrible. I literally gave it an 8 out of 10, which to me is a great movie. So please go see it. Support your local movie theaters. God knows, don't see like M3gan or whatever horrible movies coming out like Bride Hard. Just go see 28 Years Later. I recommend it.